What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Of Like Minds video podcast. I got a super special, awesome friend today, Mr. Rob Moss. Rob, thank you so much for giving us your time today and coming on to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, brother. Thank you for having me, man.
I
Happy to be
appreciate
here.
it. Oh, so happy that you're here. And Rob, we're going to get into your career and everything that you've done, but you know, you're a very humble man, and I want to start from the beginnings, and I want to start talking about,
Absolutely.
you can just share with us a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing and what that was like.
Yeah, childhood upbringing. Okay, let me see. Well, I was born in Detroit, Michigan. You know what I mean? The musical, mecca of the United States, of the world. You know what I'm saying? If you ask me, Detroit's still one of the most musical cities. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of music in my childhood growing up. Just a lot of creativity as far as music is concerned. From the time I was a kid, all the way up until now. I started writing songs when I was about 7 years old, you know what I'm saying? And kept on the path and, doing plays and doing shows. And eventually I went to an arts high school and an arts college. And a lot of those things just, I was able to hone in on my talent. But, growing up in Detroit, it was, of course, there were a lot of hardships, you know what I mean? I'm from the hood. I'm not from the suburbs. I'm not from the outskirts of Detroit. I'm from Detroit, 7 Mile, 6 Mile. And, a lot of family stuff growing up, from, alcohol abuse. And, a lot of my family were, in, a lifestyle that was, looked down upon as far as like, certain uncles who may have been drug dealers and, all types of stuff. I really experienced a lot of stuff, you know what I'm saying, with my family, you know what I'm saying, growing up. And my escape from all of that was always music. I started doing plays. I did my first play at the Detroit Opera House when I was in seventh grade with Ginuwine and LisaRaye. And they were like big celebrities, at the time. And I was like 12, 13. And I did, I started doing little tours and started, really using my talent as a way to escape, you know what I'm saying? Because my home situations were always very, very rough, So once I started honing in on my talent and realized that, oh, I can sing and I can, I have these talents, I then went to a performing arts high school, the Detroit School of Arts, which is famously known as the school that Aaliyah went to. I don't know if you know the late great singer-songwriter Aaliyah. She graduated from that high school, and I was a big fan of hers, so I already knew I wanted to go to that school. But it was when I got to that school that I really started learning about music, and we were not like a regular high school. Like we had maybe 2 or 3 academic classes, but we had music classes, 7 or 8 music classes, and we sang and toured and performed, you know what I'm saying, all over. And we learned how to read music. We learned about classical music. We learned about opera. We learned about Black composers. We learned about jazz, R&B, everything you could possibly learn in, those hallways of the Detroit School of Arts. And I do feel that that's where I was molded into the artist that I am today, because I was always performing, always singing, and always using my talent as a way to escape from, the rough city, you know what I'm saying, of Detroit. And then that helped me get into college and go to college for theater in Chicago and musical theater and do some collegiate level performing. And then when I was 19, I got the opportunity to perform at the Apollo Theater in New York City. And a lot of people don't know that, but I actually placed 3rd place at the Showtime at the Apollo twice. Yeah, I actually did. And at that point, that's when I decided to move to New York City and just pursue music full time.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So, and that's pretty much how I ended up here. I was in New York City, then I came here. But that's pretty much, what my childhood was in a lump sum. A lot of culture growing up in Detroit, a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of, there were a lot of hard times as well, but I just chalked that up as a part of being from Detroit. Like if you're from Detroit, you're gonna fight, you're gonna get, you're gonna experience, you know what I'm saying, certain things, because that's just a part of Detroit. But it was a lot of creativity growing up. That's when I really feel that my creativity was molded, you know what I mean? So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Went to college in Chicago, loved it, you know what I'm saying? And then I moved to New York City. That's where I met Jordan Waters. And, that's, how I ended up connecting with you. Yep. And Then after a few years of being in New York City, I won the Solo Artist of the Year, which is like an independent artist award in New York City. And I was like, okay, let me see what else I can do. And then that's when I came to LA in 2017 and been kind of ever
Woo.
since.
Well,
Kind of,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, there's a
long
lot.
story.
There's a lot to dig into there, and I think kind of going back to growing up in Detroit and being in an art school, and maybe if you can just talk about the importance of a healthy environment. I mean, you were surrounded with artists, you were surrounded with rich culture, music culture that you were diving
Yes.
into. If you could just talk about the importance of a healthy environment to facilitate and foster your growth as an artist.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think having that environment is essential to not only your youth, but it's essential to your adulthood because I've learned that a lot of the creativity and ways that I think now is a result of the things that I learned in high school and being such, you know, being in such an artistic environment. And, you know, that's one of my biggest passions is just exposing young people to art and, you know, as far as music programs being in schools, and like I was able to firsthand experience how important those types of things are. And that's why when I meet young people that are in school, that are in their colleges or in their choirs, or, you know, just doing things, it really reminds me of me because that space is important. I was lucky enough to have a lot of really great mentors who were musicians and classical musicians, or, you know, really Detroit is filled with so much amazing musicality. So I also had a lot of really great mentors who helped me to get to college or to, you know, do music or to do things, you know what I'm saying? So I think that environment is absolutely essential. It was an experience unlike no other because you learn how to be a professional. We were really performing and touring, you know what I'm saying? We were performing 4 or 5 times a week, and we would have to be out of school for like a month to go on tour with the school, though, with the school, because we would sing all over the world. They went to Africa, you know, if you know about the Detroit Public School music programs, very very accoladed. They've been to Africa, they've been to Paris, they've been to Carnegie Hall, you know, all of these different things. So I think it was just beyond important because if I would have only saw what was in my community growing up in the hood, I don't think I ever would have known. But it was when I got to DSA and I saw, oh wow, you can actually apply your talents and gifts and make it out of the hood. And that was my exposure, you know what I'm saying, to the other side. You know what I mean? So definitely essential, you know what I mean, to have that experience and have those type of environments, whether it's like a community program or just whatever. Those types of things are crucial, you know,
Absolutely. And,
big
you
time.
know, talking about, the importance, obviously, of that healthy environment and, a safe space, you talking about you growing up in the city in Detroit and maybe just talking about
Yeah.
the contrast of, okay, school life is very, very skewed from your normal day to day. If you can just talk about what it was like growing up in the city and just really kind of showing the people that don't really know about Detroit or what it was like during that time.
You know, growing up in Detroit, you know, it's a lot of culture, um, a lot of music. You know, people just sit around and play spades and listen to music all day. Like growing up, you know, we we just played spades and listened to music. And, you know, I was always going around. This is the thing. I was the little kid in the hood who could sing. So I used to go around the neighborhood just singing for everybody. And the drug dealers or whatever, they would give me money to sing, you know, whatever. Like I was running around to whatever studio I could get to, trap house studios, whatever, like, but as far as growing up, it's just the same typical stuff, you know what I mean? You know, drug dealing, violence, drinking, alcohol, drugs, you know, just everything you could imagine. I had already been robbed at gunpoint and shot at and everything by the time I was like 16, you know, just regular stuff. And I say it with like because you know, it's regular stuff when you come up, not just Detroit. I feel like, you know, there's a hood or that, you know, an environment, a redlined environment in every city. You know what I mean? But I also feel like it's a certain amount of strength that you gain, and it's a certain amount of fearlessness that you gain because it makes you not afraid to walk down the street, you know what I'm saying, in the worst neighborhood, or it gives you a certain fearlessness just through life. You know what I mean? When you grow up and you have to fight. I was never a fighter growing up. You know, I was more of a nerd. I was more of a singer. You know, I used to
Mm-hmm.
sing at all my middle school programs. But there would be times where I had to learn how to fight. I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn how to fight because people were picking on me. I had to learn how to fight. You know what I mean? I had to learn, you know, certain things and do, you know what I'm saying, those types of things just as a means to survival. You know what I mean? And I do feel that that's one of the things that I do want to change about our communities. I do feel like, you know, it's up to us to put more into our communities, you know what I'm saying? So that it's just not so much chaos. But, you know, it was a lot of chaos, but there was a lot of love as well, because I feel like when you don't have money and you're not exposed to a lot of things growing up, the only thing you do have is that love, and that love within that community. And that's something that I still feel to this day, because a lot of people don't know. You know, I live in Cali and all of that, but when I go back to Detroit, I still be in the hood. Like when I go back to Detroit to visit, I don't even go downtown or go to the suburbs or stay at the nice hotel. I go post up right in the hood, post up 7 Mile, Greenfield, 6 Mile, whatever, because that's where I came up. I still feel comfortable in that
Mm-hmm.
environment in a sense. You know what I mean? I still feel like, yes, there's a lot of craziness growing up, but these are the people that I love. This is the community I grew up in. This is the community that nurtured me. And a lot of those people that had those bad raps of being, doing illegal stuff or whatever, those were still, my family members. You know what I mean? Those were people in my family, that, you know, had to do what they had to do to survive. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand both sides of it. I understand having to be a hustler and having to put food in your kids' mouths and having to go about it in a way that may be a little unjust. You know what I mean? But I also understand going to college and, working a 9 to 5 and actually getting a job, whether it's serving, coat checking, whatever it is I have to do to follow my dream, and not having to go that route as well. But I love the inner city, and I feel like it's definitely a part of my calling to, be to lead by example, to lead my people to follow their dreams. I know a lot of my fan base are people that are in those communities, and so it's important. You know what I mean? It's important to have both sides. Like it's important to know there's certain parts of my community that I feel is judged by the rest of the world or judged by society or might be looked down on. But for me, when I look at those people, I know their struggle, I know their story,
Mm-hmm.
and I identify with them because that's my mother, that's my cousin, that's my brother, that's my family don't live out here in Beverly Hills with me. They don't live, out here in Hollywood. You know what I mean? So, you know, I don't know if that answers the question, but
So, Rob, I just want to talk a little bit about the transition and, you learning all these things, in your neighborhood and in the performing arts school. And then, one, talking about when was the idea of college? When did that even first become like I can actually do this? And two, what was that transition like going from Detroit and transitioning over to Chicago and going to college over there? Two-part question.
yeah. Well, thankfully, I got to give it to the Detroit School of Arts, man. They were they're very adamant from the day you step in the ninth grade. And I think it's because the college ratio is so like small. I think not many people make it to college in Detroit. So from the minute you step in the hallway in ninth grade, they're automatically preparing you for college. Like
Mm,
that's why they want to teach you to sing so well, because they know you can get scholarships, singing really well. I had a few scholarships to sing opera to a lot of different colleges, but all of the counselors, they're very adamant about making sure that college is in your mind from the minute you step into DSA. And also my vocal teacher, Miss Cheryl Valentine, she's been teaching in Detroit Public Schools music for about 35 years now.
mm,
And I credit her with so much because she used to take us on college tours, which would basically be us going to all different colleges, HBCUs, whatever, and auditioning and getting a chance to sing and go, have a one-on-one experience with their music director or with whoever's over that music program to get scholarships and all different ways. So the Detroit School of Arts, they are really just they're just really concerned about making sure your future is good beyond. Dr. Denise Davis Cotton, that was one of her founding principles of DSA, was training great artists and training you to be really talented in your field, but also applying you with the mindset and the mental like discipline to actually be successful at a collegiate level and beyond. So they were always pushing college. I ended up finding an arts college. Oh, can I turn this back on, bro? I need this lighting. I ended up finding an arts college that I went to as well, Columbia College, Chicago, and very similar environment to DSA because I just got out of a performing arts high school and then went to a performing arts college, but it was diverse, you know what I mean? So I went from pretty much knowing my community, knowing my hood, knowing my, predominantly African American people to going to Columbia College, Chicago, which was very diverse and you were very, free to be expressive. And I chose to go to that college because I really wanted to go somewhere where I could develop my identity and continue to develop my creativity. So went to Columbia College, Chicago, and I majored in musical theater and straight acting as well. And it was it opened my mind up, it unlocked my creativity because when you meet people that are from a different place than you, or, you meet people of different races and different backgrounds and you're able to see that creativity. But I definitely will admit, there was a bit of a culture shock there. And I definitely got in a little trouble in college, you know what I mean? I just feel like the transition of just going from my neighborhood and knowing what I knew, as growing up in, Detroit for 17 years to transitioning so drastically to, a big college in Chicago. And I went all by myself. I definitely had my mishaps and things that I probably would have done differently because I was in college at 17, 18, because I skipped one grade when I was a kid. So I've always been one grade up my whole life. So I was in college at 17 and it was like, really trying to figure it out and had, a lot of ups and downs, you know what I'm saying, in that period of my life. It was definitely a transitional, it was definitely a tough transition, because you don't know how to react to certain environments or certain cultures or certain things, so I definitely had to learn. It was a culture shock, going straight from the hood, Detroit, and knowing my community and to going to, a place with so much diversity,
Well, if you can take us a little bit through, I know you said that you were doing straight acting and musical theater. If you can take us a little bit through maybe like, a normal week of like your workload or your regimen in terms of what you had to do, like maybe just a time. I know there's so many years that we're in college, but if you can just talk about what the typical regimen was like for you because you
I
have to
just
balance
remember a
it.
lot of weed. Oh God, I just remember a lot of weed in college. Ooh, child. I always thought that was like a cliche thing when I would hear people talk about college. They would be like, "Oh, I was so," but God, it's the truth. And we ain't have no money. I don't know how we were smoking all that weed and we ain't have no money. But and it's because it was an art school. Columbia College Chicago they're very big on finding individuality and they're very big on creativity. And because I had already come from such an advanced music program at DSA, I excelled in my program because I already knew how to read music. I had already booked professional tours and professional shows. I was casted in a production of The Color Purple, a regional tour, while I was in college for musical theater. And that's one of the reasons why I changed my major because I was already booking, professional shows. But so I really excelled in my musical theater program. And I think when I left the program, my musical theater teacher and instructors, they were very sad because, I excelled in that program and not tooting my own horn, but I was really equipped with a lot of musical knowledge, coming from Detroit and really knowing how to sing. And so I would say a typical day was because the campus of Columbia is urban, it's downtown. So
Okay.
it's very like, you're very much in a city. And so we were just running around downtown Chicago, eating fried chicken, dancing and singing and going to the studio. I would say my college experience, because it was an arts college and it was just a continuation of my educational background, but being more so about music and art, because I think I tested out of so many of my academic classes, that it was just, I had a lot of, theater classes, acting classes, body movement, a lot of those types of things. And what I would do is I would be in college and that's when I started going back to the studio, because I used to go to the studio and write music while I was in high school, but I never did it seriously. But by the time I got to college, I met an incredible engineer named Kevin Cutler, and he was working with like Chance the Rapper and everything at the time. And I
Mm,
started going to his studio, and that's when I started really getting back into doing music. And that's when I started putting music out like on SoundCloud and stuff, and it started getting known around the colleges
mm,
in Chicago, because you had Columbia College, DePaul University, and like another, it
mm.
was like three different campuses in one. So I started putting out music, and people around the campus, started, knowing like, hey, dude, I like your song. I found your music. I found your thing. And that's literally when I decided that I was going to go to New York and do the Apollo Theater and just do music full time.
So were you
Such an abrupt decision.
so wait, so first of all, going back, just were you only in Chicago for your college tenure,
Two,
right?
2.5 years. I was in
2.5
Chicago
years.
2.5 years. Yep.
Okay, and so immediately after that, you decide, okay, I'm gonna perform at Apollo. I'm going to New York. Is that kind of what happened?
I remember, yes, and I remember it clear as day. I was sitting in the dorm, and this guy came up to me and he sat next to me. He was like, dude, your song is doing really great on SoundCloud. Like, it has like 1,000 plays, which that's how you know. Because 1,000 SoundCloud plays made me drop out of college. I'm serious. Because I was working a job to pay for college out of pocket. I
Mm,
had a job at the Hard Rock Hotel.
mm,
So I was working, paying for college out of pocket. I had my own apartment. I didn't have any
mm.
grants or anything. I was paying for college out of pocket. So when I was sitting in the dorm and he was like, dude, your music is like blowing up on SoundCloud, whatever. And I looked at it and I was like, I think this is what I want to do. I was like, if I just did this
Ah,
for fun and it got 1,000 plays, I was like, imagine what could happen if I actually like did this, if I actually took all this money that I'm spending on college and started, going to the studio and actually doing
mm.
stuff. And I don't know how I ended up getting booked to perform at the Apollo Theater. I really do not know how that happened. Shout out to Kathy. I
So
don't
they
know if
just
she
hit you
still
up one
works
day.
over
They
there.
just hit you up.
Yeah, it was just an email or something. I don't know how it happened, but they were like, we want you to come perform at Amateur Night at the Apollo, Showtime at the Apollo. And I was like, literally, I sent my acting teacher an email and I was just like, I'm so sorry, but I have to leave the program and I have to pursue music. I'm going to New York to pursue music. And I literally just did it. And there's an artist named Ted Park who I met out there. We just recorded. And, that was a whole nother lifestyle. Once I got to New York, the training wheels were off. It was like,
Mm.
okay, it was like, boom, it's time to go for it, So
How old were
that
you
was
at
it.
that
But
time when you went to New
19,
York? Whoo!
19,
So 19, you're like, all right, school program, I've excelled, I've done this, I've learned a lot of great things.
I had a
You get
fake
this
ID.
opportunity, and you're like, I need to do this because you saw what the results you were netting. You just enjoyed it, but you're like, man, if I can just reinvest and put all my energy into
I
this.
wanted to put all of my money. I didn't want to pay. I knew that writing songs and writing music, and I knew that that was my true passion. And I knew that I was in school for musical theater, but I was already booking professional shows. So I was really feeling like, well, why am I paying for this? Why am I paying for
Mm.
them to teach me something that if I'm booking shows, I'm like, obviously, like, so I wanted to put my money working a 9 to 5. I was like, you know what? I want to be able to invest into, going to the studio, getting mixes done, getting videos done. I want to see what doing that will do for me, because I don't know what that 1,000 plays, but that was the moment where he was like, dude, you got 1,000 plays. I was like, because I had just put it out. I didn't even think about it. Like, I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wrote the
sharing it.
song and just putting it out, and people were coming up to me and asking me to perform around the college and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna really do this. Like, this is what I want to do. I love theater
Mm.
and I love the arts, but I feel like this is what I want to do. I want to write music, and I moved to Jamaica, Queens in New York City. We set
Hmm.
up a studio in the living room. I got a job at a restaurant, Robert
Hmm.
De Niro's restaurant. It was the coolest restaurant job ever.
Mm.
And I would work 8 hours a day and then go home and record until like 5 in the morning, literally every single day. I would get off work at like 10, get home, we would record until 4 or 5 in the morning, and I would be back up at 7:30. And I would do that every single day until I had my mixtape done. And it was a lot. It was a vibe.
First of all, I think you just hit something on the head right there, Rob. And I'm kind of really big on it right now, is especially as an artist. At least in the transitional state, we have to make those sacrifices. you know, initially you're gonna have to, you know, get some stable income. But talking, if you can just talk about that, because I think there's something to be said about working a 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with it. It provides you with dollars to pay for your bills and to live. But there's something to be said about there's nothing like working for yourself, and just talking about that balance of showing up for work for 8, 9 hours and then working for yourself for another 8, 9, 10 hours, working for yourself just as much as you're working to make that money. If you can just talk about the sacrifice, if you can talk about the discipline, just talking about that commitment to making it work, all means necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I don't even know where that discipline was coming from. I think I was just young and just trying to get it done. I was, still am, but just so passionate about getting my music done that I was just like, I need to do whatever it's going to take. I had already gotten in a little trouble when I was a kid and, you know, experienced what going down the wrong route could take you. So I was
Mm,
totally cool with working a 9 to 5 when I was living in
mhm.
New York. I actually had about 3 or 4 jobs because everybody knows living in New York City, one job is never enough. So
Nah,
I
nah.
had a job at Abercrombie and Fitch, and I had 2 restaurant jobs. Yes, I was an Abercrombie model, everything, you know, but you know, it was just a means to survive. When I moved out there at 19 years old, I didn't have anyone giving me anything. I knew that if I wanted to pay my bills and if I wanted to live and if I wanted to, you know, be able to survive in the most expensive city in the world, I had to
Mm,
work. You know, I had to get a job. I had to figure it out. And when I tell you I did every job from serving, waiting, hosting, coat check, coattail, I mean, literally every job you can do. I've done it and did it, and you know what I'm saying, you know, did it to support my did it just with the sole purpose of supporting my dreams and wanting to be able to give myself an opportunity to make music and to put out music and to, you know, actually do it, you know what I mean, and not have to depend on anybody to pay for the studio for me or to, you know, have to
mm,
give me free studio time. Like I just always thought with the process of, you know what, if I want to make this dream happen, I have to work for it. But in New York, sleep was literally not a thing. Like I don't even think I slept at all out of the years that I lived there. Like I don't think I slept at all from 19 to 23. I think I was there 22. I don't think I slept at all. Like it was just a constant working and constantly working on music, but I was surrounded by really creative, amazing people. So it
mm,
didn't feel like work. We were just doing what we loved. We would
mm,
be in the studio all night and all day just because we loved doing it. Like it didn't, that part of it didn't feel like work, you know, having to work at the restaurant all day, that, you know, that felt like work, you know what I mean, but we would come home and just make music all night. But it wasn't until later that I started, you know, understanding like, okay, oh, this is branding, this is music, this is something that can become something that can make you money, this can become work too, you know what I mean. So
mm.
great times, but it was definitely a lot of sacrifice. I remember I definitely had to rob Peter to pay Paul, and just to really went through a lot. I remember, you know, only having enough money to get literally $1 slice of pizza every day for a week on 46th and 8th. Is that 42nd and 8th? Literally that place where you can get a slice of pizza for $1. I remember there was a time in my life in New York where that was the only thing I could do for a week. And I would have $5 for the week. Like, okay, you got enough to get at least food every
Oh,
day for a week. I used to sing on the train to make money. You know what I mean? Like I would
yeah.
definitely go on the train and sing all day, make $100. You know what I mean? And that was tough because in New York City, if you can't sing, they're not going to give you any money. You know, so I
Mm,
used to, you know, like seriously, I had to really know how to impress people, you know, because before in the times where I didn't have a job or couldn't find a job, I would sing for 6 or 7 hours straight and, you know, make money that way. I did it. New York truly made me a hustler. You know what I mean?
mm.
It made me a by any means necessary type of person, even more so in a way than Detroit, you know? So super grateful for all of that time spent over there because, you know, hard in the moment, but paid off big time.
Absolutely, and then that commitment, and not just talking about it, but really being about it. And you're obviously a living example of that, and thriving very much in that sense. And kind of just getting back to, you know, what initially brought you to New York, and if you could just talk a little bit, share a little bit about what that performance was like, the
Oh, it was
Apollo, and just
amazing.
share with us about that, what that was
That
like.
was an amazing moment. It was Amateur Night at the Apollo Theater, sponsored by Coke. And I don't know to this day how they ended up finding me, but they found me somehow, flew out there, and I did the show and I placed third place the first time. And I placed third place the second time too, because you have to go through 3 rounds. As long as you keep placing, they let you keep performing until you win.
Mm,
And it was so interesting because I didn't have any family members there, and it's based on audience, response.
yeah.
So it was like, anybody who's ever seen the Apollo know that, like, if you're whack, they'll boo you and you get booed off stage. And I was 19 years old, and I went out there and I sang "Heard It Through the Grapevine" by Marvin Gaye. If I can find the
Mm,
footage, like, the footage is still around somewhere, I'll send it to you if I can find it. But
yeah, absolutely.
and the people just, I remember I started, because that's the big time. Like, that's where you got the full band, you got a full light, you got about 3,000 people. And I had been doing theater in big venues all of my life, so I was pretty used to playing in front of
Mhm.
2, 3,000 people, but never by myself as an artist. See, I was doing
Mm,
theater as a performer, you know what I mean, and playing a character, but never by myself. So when I did that performance, and I started singing and dancing, I just remembered the way the audience reacted. The minute I started dancing and singing, I truly remember that was a moment that I was like, I don't know. I feel like this really might be something that I can do, because
mm,
this is the Apollo. This is showtime at the Apollo. Every legend who has ever been anything has been on this stage,
mm.
from Michael to Prince to Beyonce to Lauryn Hill, anybody. And, I was 19 years old. And from there on, I ended up getting a gig singing at the Sugar Bar, which is an iconic, like, singing bar in Harlem, right down the street from the Apollo Theater. And I started singing at the Sugar Bar. And I remember I did another show in New York from the same booking agent who booked me for the Apollo, because I actually became close friends with her. Her name is Kathy Sharpton, and she was the booking agent for the Apollo, and she used to book me to perform. And I remember I did a show, and Reverend Al Sharpton was there. And after my performance, he came on stage and he was like, I know you perform at Amateur Night at the Apollo, but you ain't no amateur no more. And after he told me that, I never did Amateur Night at the Apollo again, because I
Mm.
was like, okay, if Reverend Al Sharpton say I ain't no amateur no more, then I'm not no amateur no more. And then from there on, that's when I started doing my mixtapes and getting in the
Mm.
indie circuit and performing at open mics and started putting out my own music. So yeah, that was just an experience, because my dad was there. God rest his soul. My dad, who passed
Mm.
away in 2017.
Mm.
I knew that in that moment, seeing me perform at the Apollo Theater at 19 years old, and having people actually clap for me to the point where I actually placed, multiple times. And even
Mhm.
though I never won, I know that he was so proud of me. I know that if I never had done, anything else, again, I know that he was proud to see me in that moment, and to see me in front of those people. And at the time, it was just another thing. I was actually sad because I wanted to win. I remember he had to take me to eat at Red Lobster because I was sad. Like, I was sad that I didn't win. Like, I cried. Like, I was
Yeah.
sad that I did not win. You know what I mean? And I
Mm.
remember, but now I look back on it and I'm like, that was a moment. That was truly a moment, because there are a lot of amazing performers who would never see, things like the Apollo Theater or the Detroit Opera House. And, so amazing experience, and I think that was definitely the moment where I realized that, you can do this, because I had just left college and I was still shaky about everything, and I was really depending on just that performance to be something, because I had dropped out of college. I didn't really have anything else,
Yeah.
and so it was great.
Mm.
Good
I love it.
times.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
How long were you in New York for? And maybe just I know you talked about you were at the Sugar Bar and you had performed at open mic nights, but if you can just talk about what how long you were in New York for. But number two, more importantly, I know you started writing when you were even in high school, but you said not taking that serious. What was the first like mixtape or the first album that you put out where you were like, this is the first like official Rob Moss coming out party? What was that?
Ooh, that first EP, never forget it. It's called Easy the EP.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my heart and soul into that EP, and that was that EP that got that 1,000 downloads or whatever
Uh-huh,
on SoundCloud, that made
uh-huh.
me drop out of college. Um, but it was called Easy, and I wasn't even thinking about anything. I was just making songs, and um, that's how just the organic fan base. Like, I mean, literally, I would be on the bus sometimes when I was in college, and people would be coming up like, "Bro, you got that one song out, bro. I like that song, you know." And all different, like, you know, kids from around the college, you know, around the college campus. So that first EP was called Easy. The EP, it was 5 songs, and that was the first time I got on a blog, you know, and stuff with a song called Anticipation. And I used to just send stuff to blogs, and you know, and never get on anything, but eventually something picked up, and I
Yeah.
met Ted Park, who is, I don't know, do you know who Ted Park is? He's a Korean rapper, very, you know, just incredible artist, you know what I mean? And I met him and I started recording in his living room. And when I was living in New York after the Apollo, I did my mixtape called Lover, Loner, Stoner,
Uh-huh.
which was just a result of all the weed that I had smoked in college and me making music about it. And I put out a track called Better For Me that ended up getting, you know, some steam, and I ended up winning an award called it was the Independent Artist Awards in New York City. And I was, once again, didn't know I was there, don't know how I got invited, because there were a lot of artists there that were popping in the New York scene. And
Uh-huh.
I was like the only singer, 18 rappers, the only singer there. And I did that show and I ended up winning the award for like solo artist of the year. And and it was off of that mixtape, and they were, you know, they were really adamant, and that was by Bridging the Music, that's the name of the company. But
Mm.
they were just kind of like, you know, dude, you know, you have a special sound and da 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 da. So I started getting a little bit of response from the independent music community in New York City with the Lover, Loner, Stoner mixtape with Better For Me. That's like still my biggest song to this day. So those projects were like the first ones where, even though I didn't really know, because I wasn't making music for any purpose other than just wanting to make music. So
Mm.
I didn't, you know, I didn't really have a lot of knowledge as far as what I have now. And it was just making it just to make it and putting it out with really no expectation, but people did respond, you know what I'm saying, organically. Um, so yeah, those, it was Easy the EP and Lover, Loner, Stoner. Those are like, and both of those projects are available, you know what I'm saying, on
Mm-hmm.
Apple Music, Spotify, and everything now. And whenever I have, like, you know, new fans or, you know, new people who I meet, I always, you know, recommend going back and listening to those projects, because it's you know, it's just heartfelt stuff. You know, I was young,
Mm.
and I was the project, the Easy, the EP, that's really my whole life growing up in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty much that whole era of my life put into that project. And the Lover, Loner, Stoner is pretty much the whole struggle that I was going through transitioning from Chicago to New York. And now, since I've moved to LA and I've experienced a little bit more, you know, exposure to the industry, I
Mm.
don't have those same struggles. So my music doesn't come from that same place anymore. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It doesn't come from that same place anymore. It comes from a different place. But I always say, you know, if you want to learn more about Rob Moss, or if you really want to, you know, really be a fan, you know what I'm saying, go and listen to those projects. I had
Mm.
Tiffany Gouche production on the Lover, Loner, Stoner. I met Tiffany Gouche on SoundCloud and was begging her for her beats on SoundCloud and recording them in New York City. It just really didn't even know, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, those projects mean everything to me. And although they never went viral and blew up and you were platinum selling albums, you know, I always listen back to them and I'm like, you know, you were just a young, passionate kid putting your everything into music. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And I always look to get back to that place. Is the sound okay? Because I think my headphones just died.
You good? You good? You good? Just yeah. Just come a little closer and let us hear your beautiful
Just come
voice.
a little closer. All right.
Rob, so you know, you growing up in born and raised in Detroit. Correct me if I'm wrong. Going to college in Chicago and cutting that a little short
Right.
and pursuing your dreams in New York, and then kind of talking about now, kind of you making your way over to LA. One, what kind of inspired that move, and two, what's it been like out living out on the West Coast for the first time?
Yeah. What inspired the move to LA? You know what? It was spiritual. It was spiritual. I remember I was in church one day and God just told me it's time to go.
Mm.
It's that simple. And I remember I was in church. I went to visit Chicago and I was on my way back to Detroit because New York had just wore me out. I'm like, I'm taking a break, going back home. And I was in church. I remember God, clear as day, he was like, we need to go to LA. And I didn't have no money. I had
no money, no, I didn't even have a state ID to get on a plane, no money to get no flight, no nothing. I just remember clear as day, God spoke to me and said, you need to go to LA right now. And I remember I walked around the whole day and I was like, God, I know you ain't told me to go to LA with no money in my pocket. Like, I know you ain't told me that. Let me go to Detroit, get my money right. And it was like, when you hear that spiritual voice, it was clear as day. He was just like, no, go to LA right now. And I ended up getting a flight somehow, 5 in the morning. Mom bought a flight somehow, I don't know. And I ended up getting on a plane without an ID. Don't know how that happened. Don't know. I had $38 in my pocket. Did not have a place to live. I had a friend who had just moved like a day before I did. He was like, dude, I have a studio apartment downtown. You can crash with me for however you long. All of this happened in like one day. One day, like literally. And I was like, all right, going to LA. And I don't know. And, it was definitely a struggle, coming here. I would say that was the roughest transition of them all,
Mm.
was coming here. But you know, I've been able to experience a lot more success and exposure here than I have in any other place. You know what I mean? And so it's definitely has its ups and downs. But the LA story was just crazy because when I tell you that was all God, like I can't even, you know, explain what that was. It was literally, it was like one of those movies. I was sitting in church and it was just like, you gotta go. And I was like, no, I don't have any money. Have any money. I have $30. I don't. How am I going to get to LA,
Yeah.
God? Since you know it all, and that's really what it was. But I've always been so strong in my faith, and sometimes when you hear something clear, like it's that supernatural voice. You hear it, and um, that's when I came here, and it's been a ride ever since.
Mm. Well, first of all, Rob, before we continue moving on, just I don't want you to wear out your voice, but just
Oh no,
moving
you're
forward,
good.
just speak up a little bit more, sir, so that way the audience can also hear you too. Just
Got you. I
moving
got my
forward.
headphones coming back in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So you in LA now, Rob, and the cool thing is if you can talk a little bit about the differences you've noticed in the industry, at least in particular, in LA, compared to what it seems like in New York, and what the scene like is in Chicago. You know what I mean? So I think maybe more so focusing on when you became a professional, and maybe kind of comparing and contrasting the industry in New York and the industry versus the industry in LA.
Yeah, it's trash. It's trash.
Which one? Which one?
LA trash. No, I'm just playing. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. My transition to LA was very rough because once again, like the Chicago thing, fish out of water. You know what I mean? Going from living in Jamaica, Queens, in New York, which is still essentially, a certain type of area to going to living in Los Angeles. Completely, complete transition. I never could have been prepared for that. As soon as I moved to LA, I was thrust into the LA lifestyle immediately. I was doing like background work and I was doing film work on sets and stuff. And, I had some friends who were kind of like in the lifestyle and the celebrity lifestyle and stuff. So it was like, soon as I got out here, it was just like a lot of stuff, a lot of parties, a lot of like, houses in the hills and, nice, different types of people, things that I had never been exposed to. But personality wise, I just, it's a little bit different. I'm still adapting on how to deal with, certain energies and certain, things because in LA it's just a different world from New York as far as, music not necessarily being the most important thing out here. It's more so about the image. It's more so about a lot of other things besides the music, the connections. I feel like LA is when I learned the dark side. You know,
Mm,
like it's when I really learned some of the realities about the industry that I may have been not been privy to. You know what I'm saying? Before coming here, when it was just all about making music and being creative and having a team of young creative people around me who weren't really judging anything I was doing. We were just having fun making music. To where you get out here and I'm in these studios with these industry people and I'm in these big Hollywood studios and I'm meeting all these big writers and these big people and I'm noticing that this space is a lot different. This space and this communication and even the music, it's all very different. So it definitely was, me adapting. But once I got into the groove, I put out my EP Godly in 2017. And I consider that to be like my first release because I had my first two mixtapes earlier, but that was the first time I put out a project and I was out in LA and I was in fancy studios and I had fancy people shooting my video and I had fancy engineers, and I kind of had this team of like, fancy Hollywood people working on my stuff, and I put out my single Ungrateful in 2017, and that ended up becoming my first song to really kind of, get some attention from a lot of blogs and people, on the internet, starting kind of to see who was this a little bit, just organically. And then I put out the No Sleep single, which that's when I called you for that video. That was my I just put out that EP. So when I put out that EP, that was kind of the EP that I feel was like my first like real thing, because I had actually gotten a distribution deal with Soul Spasm. I had gotten, to, be in these nice studios, and I had gotten, so that was the first time that I got to see, and I started putting out music, and it started getting more, I went from that 1,000 plays to like 10,000, 20,000, just started, experiencing, growth little by little. And that's what LA has been for me. It's been growth, slow but steady growth. You know what I mean? Okay, we're back on with the headphones.
Well, while you're putting those guys on, Rob, and just kind of talking about, LA and that year bringing us together, and that was a special time, and obviously on the No Sleep track, and things just kind of didn't work out in terms of not being able to come through, but there are going to be some things that are going to come through, and I'm looking forward. And I just remember just being connected with you from our good friend Jordan.
Can I talk
and
about
just
that for a minute?
Yeah, let's talk. Go ahead.
I have to talk about the No Sleep because Kevin. Okay, so what happened was I reached out to Kevin from Jordan Waters and to help me with this video, and we started coming up with choreography and coming up with things, you know what I'm saying, from because remember we had those rehearsals with just us two before we even brought in all these other people, and I started bringing in a lot of different other people, and I'm not sure what happened. I was a lot young, I didn't really, what was going on. I think I got a little bit over my head because so many different people started coming in. But I remember the day that we shot the video and you were there like with me at like 7 a.m, like setting up. Remember we were on the ladder together, helping me put up the set and put up the green screen and everything. And I just remember thinking like, man, this guy is really a good person because I'm sure any other person would probably be like, oh, well, if I couldn't make it to be, in the video, like da. But you were just so supportive of like, no, Rob, I want to be here. What you need me to do, helping me set up. And we ended up shooting the video, and, I ended up putting it out, and it ended up, being a good moment for me. I have my reservations about that video, but, and it ended up being a good moment nonetheless. But I just remember really thinking like, man, this guy is just, really awesome. And I just really hope that the universe allows us to come back together and be creative again. You know what I mean? Because, that was a great moment. That was the first time I had shot a video like that, by the way. I had never done a video with, lights and dancers and all of that stuff. I had never done that. You know what I mean? So it was definitely a learning experience, and I appreciate you being a part of that story,
Oh, I mean, the craziest, I'm getting goosebumps right now. I actually forgot about that, but I just remember meeting you, and I just feel like I'm pretty good with feeling people's energy and feeling like, if you're really about it and you really genuinely love something. And I always had good vibes and good feelings from you. Even the first time we met at that Starbucks off Sunset, and I remember just being like, you were always unapologetically you, and you were just about the art and just putting out the work, and the way I was about dance is the way you are about music, and it just ever since day one. And so obviously you asking me to help with your art, even though I wasn't able to be in the process, all the process of rehearsals and stuff, I still felt like it was important to support you and be there. And like you said, like whether I was behind the camera or if I wasn't, I felt like it was important for me to show that love and support, and for you just reaching out to me. So it's cool to bring that back. I actually totally forgot about that. I'm a little
Yeah,
like
that
kind of
meant a
like,
lot to me. That really meant a lot to me because you don't meet people like that. You know what I mean? I'm really used to, doing everything, on my own. And when I was there 7 in the morning and you were right there, we were the first two people there.
we
You know
were,
what I mean? And
we were.
actually having someone help me set up and stuff. And I was just like, man, this is something that means something to me because at that time I was in a very rough transition,
Mm.
and I wasn't meeting people like that. I wasn't meeting people that, even though everyone that worked on that particular video, Art is a close friend. I definitely will say that, from Red to
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, um, Sergio,
Mm-hmm.
Felisa, those are all still really close friends, you know what I'm saying,
Yes.
to this day, you know what I'm saying? But
Yes.
yeah, dude, I always appreciate that. And I think, I really hope we get that moment to, what I'm saying, work together and dance together again. I really, 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 really hope we get that moment, like, for real.
Absolutely. No, and I remember too when we started workshopping in the studio, I remember you were kind of downplaying your ability. You're like, I could get down, but you were just kind of downplaying it.
Not no
So we
dancer.
had done some moves, and I was like, you a dancer, like you
I
have
mean,
it.
I'm
You
not
perform,
though.
but in terms of no, you are, and I think this is one of those like where people are like, well, you have to be like trained. No, I think just your exposure and you just being a performer, first of all, you being a performer and having the knack of like knowing how to get the crowd, and like you just obviously like you creating music, like rhythm and tempo, it ain't nothing to you. So it was just really cool for you to just super downplay your ability and then just showing up and showing out the studio being like, look at this guy.
I mean, I don't know, child. I'm humbled by those types of statements because, I always look at dancers as like people with superpowers because I feel like you have superpowers with your body. Because you know me, I can't learn no choreo now. I can learn some choreo, but it's gonna take a while. Like I can learn it, but it's gonna take a week.
Man, I'm
It's
just
gonna
looking.
take a week. But once I
I'm
got it, I got it.
absolutely. I'm just looking forward, and I know that we've talked about this, off camera, but just I'm looking forward to the next time, and I know it's gonna come, and the fact that we've even crossed paths again, even during a pandemic, has been amazing. And
Yeah.
one, it was just super awesome for you to reach out and for us to be like, yo, we need to run this, or we need to get this
Yeah.
out there, and
Yeah, and I'm always watching. Like I'm always watching, what you post, dance videos, your choreography. You know what I'm saying? Because I love the way you dance. First off, like I love the smoothness, the fluidity. You know what I'm saying? I love the way you dance, and I love your choreography. So I'm always watching. You know what I mean? I'm always watching, and you know what I'm saying? Just I always got my eye out and just on that creativity that I see you pushing out.
yeah.
All the time.
I appreciate you, man. So much love for you. And Rob, just kind of getting back into your musical journey, and now just talking a little bit about everything you've built and everything you've learned
Mhm.
and all the experiences, and you're literally in terms of culture, you've lived in some of the most dense cities and some of the richest cities. I'm talking,
Yeah.
I mean, Detroit, Chicago, New York. It doesn't get better than that. And now just applying that knowledge and experience to your artistry, and what you're currently doing right now. If you can just share with us kind of what you're up to, especially during global pandemic, things are kind of changing,
Absolutely.
and being a working artist, like what's it been like for you?
Yeah. Well, there's been a tremendous amount of growth, even though I still feel like still have a long way to go. But I feel like the biggest difference that I would say from all of those experiences and everything combined is what I have learned as far as my business savvy as it relates to the music industry. The creative part is just, that's always there in me, you know? That part, it might be a struggle sometime, but I'm always going to be able to find myself creatively because the music is just, it's in me. But the business part of it, I will say, like, as of right now, in the future, that's my biggest, that's pretty much my biggest thing. And that's a huge area of focus for me because I don't know if but we're in a climate with our artists now where ownership and independence
Mm.
and control is the biggest thing. And I realize as an independent artist and as an independent label owner that I'm in a unique position. Although It's really hard because you have to do everything on your own and you go through so much doubt and feeling like nobody cares, nobody, it's so many artists out. It's really hard to feel discouraged. But once you can get past that mindset and you can really look at it as a small business and you can really understand like, oh, you know what? I might be an independent artist, but I can still have fans. I can still make money. I can still grow my fan base. I can still have a revenue stream. I can still recoup. I can still make money from da 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 da. So I had to really learn about the industry part of it. And I mean, like, really taking, 4 or 5 months to not make music, but to just learn, to read books, to read
Mm.
music industry books, to watch interviews, to listen to podcasts, to learn about music, to learn about contracts, to learn about royalties, to learn about publishing, to
Mm.
learn about mechanical royalties, sync licensing, performance royalties. What is ASCAP? What is BMI? What is Song Trust? What is a music supervisor? How can I, as an independent artist, monetize my streams? What is a stream? What is a digital streaming platform? How many streams equal a sale? What are sales? What are charts? What are chart points? What is Nielsen SoundScan? How do you get on these things? All of these things I took a lot of time to feed my brain with, because when the pandemic hit, you know it just kind of put me in a space to where, because I usually do a lot of shows, and that
Mm-hmm.
accounts for a big part of, like, how I make money as I'm an
Mm-hmm.
artist, you know what I mean? And when that was cut off, like, you can't do any shows and you can't da da
Mm-hmm.
da da, you know, you really have to figure it out. Okay, how can I make this work, not just now, but for the rest of my life? You know what I
Mm.
mean? So I took a lot of time to learn about the business, to learn about the business while continuously, pushing myself creatively and, all of those things as well. But that's one of my biggest messages that I want to put to any creative or any artist that's out chasing their dream, but specifically to independent music artists, is to not be discouraged ever. Everybody has to start somewhere, even if you have a small fan base, but to always understand that it is a business. And if you are savvy with that business, you can progress. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say is my biggest focus now. I just finished recording my new project called
Mm.
Project X. Dropping in November. I just released the first single for that project called Talk to Me. I'm rocking my Talk to Me hoodie right now.
Hey.
Designed by my homie Marcus over here in
I love
LA.
it.
But I just dropped that first single. I've been working on this project for since last November. I've been really working on it
Mm.
and taking my time and everything, and putting the singles out and applying everything that I've been learning. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at with it now.
Mm.
And just learning and growing every day. Being a music artist, being an artist of any kind, I feel it's a continuous process of growing and learning. My dad used to always tell me a good musician is learning until, like, he's on his deathbed,
Mm.
so it's a continuous process of growth, and growing, my fan base, and appreciating my fan base, because I appreciate them more than ever. They're very, very active group of fans. You know what I mean? And so that's what it is now.
I love it. And where can we find your current music, your even your first EPs
Yeah.
and so on? Where can we find your stuff at?
Well, I have robmossmusic.com,
Mm-hmm.
where I have all of my music available if you want to download it. A lot of it is available for free. Like, if you don't have iTunes or don't have anything, you can go and download those older albums for free
Mm-hmm.
on robmossmusic.com. But of course, everything is available to stream everywhere:
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify. Literally whatever you have, I'm sure I'm there somewhere. But if
Yeah.
you want to get the music for free, download, you can go straight through my website, robmossmusic.com. The new single, Talk to Me, is available everywhere right now. We're getting amazing response from that single,
Mm.
and the project will be coming soon, and the next single will be coming in a couple months and everything. So robmossmusic.com, or
Yep.
if you just Rob Moss anywhere,
Yeah.
honestly.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna definitely link all that stuff in the description for the video. So, after you're gonna have to send me everything just to make it super
Got you,
easy and
brother.
accessible for people. Rob, now kind of talking a little bit about getting to what you've been doing in the pandemic. Another thing that has surfaced amidst this pandemic is the realities of what you've been born into and what you've faced since day one. And so maybe just talking and shedding a little light on your thoughts on
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, and just maybe the response from those that are just being exposed to that now.
Yeah. Well, a huge part, tying back into why my mind is so business savvy now, a huge part of that was is my response to the unrest and everything, because I felt it's my duty as a Black man now more than ever to not just be on a surface. It's time to be literally the best I can be in every aspect of my life. That is one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this year. Um, so let's go back. When the when the pandemic first hit, and when I first saw the George Floyd video, and I'm not just trying to, focus on this situation specifically, but when I watched that video, it was unlike any, it was a feeling I had never felt in my life. And growing up in Detroit, I was very, very, and I thank God for people like Nina Scott and
Mm,
Cheryl Valentine and Stacey Gibbs and Timothy Humphrey, a lot of amazing people who were adamant about giving us Black history. And I mean history,
mm,
from, not just slavery, but just a lot of things. I was very, 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 very much so made aware, you know what I'm saying? And I had a lot of pride in being Black. Even through most of my life, I was the only Black person in my classroom in college, or through most of my jobs that I've had, I'm the only Black person that works there,
mm,
and, whatever. So I've always taken a lot of pride in where I come from,
mm,
in being Black and being African American. And I've always, felt that utmost. But when I saw that video, it put it was almost like someone took the wool off of my eyes. It was almost like being exposed to a reality that I never knew that I wanted to be exposed to. And I don't know if you saw me on social media, but I for about 2 months I just didn't even make music or anything, and I just made it a point to really, march every
mm,
day. Like
mm,
a lot of people saw me marching maybe 3 or 4 times when I posted it, but me and my friends, we were in front of the LA City Council building every day. You know what
mm,
I mean? Every weekend, signing, petitions. And I really started to take a lot of time to read, to feed my mind about certain history and certain things, and certain systemic, things, and just so many things. I had to really take some time to read and feed my brain and understand my position as a Black man in this lifetime. You know what I mean? Because if the world is not going to give me value, I have to know how to get that value for myself and from my community. So that was one of the biggest takeaways, because I was in such disgust, such sadness, such disappointment, such hurt, such like after watching the initial video, I remember feeling like my life was worthless. I remember
mm,
feeling like, well, what do I mean anything? You know what I mean? Because when I looked at that video and so many of the others, not just George Floyd, but that was a triggering point. It made me realize, like, because that could be me. I'm not any different from those people. I'm a young Black dude from the hood. You know what I mean? So it sent me on a whirlwind. You know what I mean? But eventually, I got control of my emotions and wanted to turn that into power, and wanted to turn that into, what can I do to be the best and to stay knowledgeable, to stay, you know what I'm saying? And so that I can get to a point to where I can make a difference, you know what I'm saying, in my community, and I can make a difference in helping those that helped me, that I know that I can do, you know what I mean? And it's just as far as being a little bit more aware of certain things in politics, and, certain things that I may have blocked off for a huge period of my life, I had to start learning how to understand, because you have to feed your brain. So it was a lot of emotion, a lot of unrest internally. You know what I'm saying? But I did a lot of marching and a lot of things within my heart, whether it was signing a petition, whether it was giving to something that was quiet, or whether it was doing
Mm.
sending an email to just doing a lot of things that I did in my personal time publicly too. I did
As well. But just doing a lot of stuff that internally could feed me enough to where I can externally now lead by example. And what I'm saying, now going to being the best, what I'm saying, that I can be, because I feel that it's now I feel like it's now my duty
Mm.
to be the best, even now more so than ever. Because when you have so much against me, I feel like I have to be the best so that I can be strong for my community and that I can inspire others, because there's certain people who are put in a position to inspire. And I do feel that I am one of those people. You know what I mean? And because it really is a lot, but I'm trying to really step into the power that I have, whether that's in voting. We all have that power to be able to vote, to be able to educate ourselves on what we can vote on, whether that's nationally or locally. We have that power within us. We have that power to educate ourselves. We have that power to
Mm.
be the best. We have that power within us. So for me, it's all about tapping into that power for the future, so that my kids, or the next generation, can live in a better, have a better opportunity and not have to deal with the same unrest that we're dealing with.
Mm.
It's all about, for me, this is just me personally. I don't expect everybody else to have this, what I'm saying, perspective. But I do know that there's power in black. There's power, in Black Lives Matter, what I'm saying, as well. But for me, it's bigger than Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Black souls matter. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's about tapping into our power, what I'm saying, on the inside, and realizing that, yes, this is what this is, but we can change it in the most drastic way. We can change it within ourselves. We can change it within the world. We can do it. You know what I mean? And that's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from all of this. And I've been so inspired by all of the amazing leaders, artists, and everybody that have come forth and led by example. You know what I mean? So it's just, that's where I'm at with it, man. It's an everyday process.
Absolutely. And just I think when you talked about you kind of taking a little pause, a step back from music, and you talked about the importance of signing petitions and being active in informing yourself and marching and peacefully, I might add,
Get that is your
and
way.
do. I think
Get
that's.
that is your way. I feel like, everyone may have their ways that they deal with the unrest. You know what I mean? Some people, do this or do that, but I do think it's important to do your part and to do it in a way that is how, what I'm saying, you feel would be an effective way of doing it. You know what I'm saying? For you,
Mhm.
it might be like, I saw some people who were, criticizing the way other people protested, or the way other people demonstrated, or the way other people expressed. And I'm just like, nah, do it how you
Mm.
gotta do it. I
Yeah.
wanted to march. I wanted to sign petitions. I wanted to
Hmm.
do things. But I'm not making a Black Lives Matter album. Like, my album is not, everything I do is Black Lives Matter. But my
Mm.
album is not a political album.
Yeah.
I didn't go into the studio with the intent of, okay, I need to make a political album. I need to, like, no, because it was so much a part of my life of
Hmm.
marching every day and reading and da 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 da, that when I went into the studio, I was trying to escape away from that. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to talk
Mm.
about, if I wanted to make a song about the sky is blue, you know what I mean? I wanted to talk about everything but that, because music, it's important to, for me, it's important to have balance in life, for in whatever way you need it. Now, for the next artist, they may feel like, no, I need to express this in my music. I need to put this in my music. I need to do this. Da, da, da. I feel like every way, for one person, it might be marching and signing petitions and going, and being political. For the next person, it might be making music and making art, or doing a photo shoot, or using their voice and using their influence. for the next person, they might be so distraught that they can only, vote. For the next person, it might be, no, I'm just going to vote. I'm just going to vote. I just feel like whatever it is that we do, it's important to play a part in
Mm,
the climate, what I'm saying, that we're in. It's just of the utmost importance.
absolutely. And it's for me, kind of taking a step back too from posting dance or creating and really just realizing what's truly important. And I just wanted to one commend you and thank you for doing that on your part as well. It takes a lot to step away from the artistry and really
Mhm.
focusing on like there's so much more bigger than just what we do in our individual lanes. And so I just want to say thank you for
It is
that.
important. And as a dancer, it is important to know that when we create art, whether it be with our bodies or with our voices, we provide escapism for people.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So, and this is just my 2 cents. Even in that time where you may feel like, oh no, I don't want to, dance and I don't want to take away, but sometimes you may need to post that dance video so that you
mm,
can bring the joy to that person who enjoys watching you dance. You know
mm,
what I mean? Sometimes you may need to, do that because as creatives, this is what we do for people. It's our jobs to bring people joy. And even with all the unrest going on in the world, I do think people still deserve to see you dance. People
mm,
still deserve to hear me sing. People still deserve that because what we provide as artists, it's important to people. It's important for people to have a moment for 2 minutes where they might not think about that, but they just look
yeah.
at you dance, and they're like,
Mm,
"Oh, yes." I feel those things are very important. I feel like because as artists, I feel like it's important now more than ever to use our power that we have as far as being able to make people happy and
mm,
being able to make people aware, whether you're dancing to a Nina Simone song, so it brings, what I'm saying, awareness, but like, it's important to keep it going. And that's what I realized when I took my break from, not really making music because people started hitting me up like, hey, are you dropping new music? And I'm like, I'm marching, I'm protesting, I'm not thinking about no music. But people were like, oh, I had to realize, like, there are some people who depend on this music to be happy for their
mm,
happiness. People might be playing it while they're marching. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
that's when I had to realize, like, okay, let me make sure that I'm still, I'm saying, having balance and doing what I, what I'm saying, have to do as an artist because it's important now more than ever that people have escapism because I truly believe that this whole quarantine, if we did not have music and artistry, I don't know what the world would have been. I think
Mm,
everyone would have went crazy.
mm. Preach that, man. Just kind of culminating everything right now, Rob. You've taken us through your journey, growing up in Detroit, going to performing arts school, and transitioning, taking your talents to Chicago, leaving early, and moving to New York and saying, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna really do this. Making so many moves in New York and then eventually moving to LA where you're currently at. You've experienced so many adversities. You've been in so many different spaces, being in the music industry, being an artist, being a black man.
Yes.
Rob, what would you say to your 13-year-old self?
13-year-old self, I don't think I would say anything to him. I think I would just tell him, keep doing what you're doing, bro. Because I couldn't imagine my life being anything other than what it is, truly. Um,
Mm,
I would probably tell my 13-year-old self, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. Like I know what I would tell my 19-year-old self. 13, I was pretty happy at 13.
mm,
I don't know. I think I would just, tell him to, never lose that confidence, never lose that passion that you have for music. Never lose that. Don't ever let anyone sway you from that. That's what I think I would tell because when I was 13, all I cared about was music, choir music. So I would probably tell him that. Don't lose that passion.
mm. So beautiful. Well, Rob, before we hop off, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for reconnecting, and this has been the bittersweet things of the pandemic, which is allowing us to kind of slow down and reconnect with, who's really important. And it's crazy the universe brought us back together, and it's been awesome. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your beautiful story, and hopefully, those that are tuning in and listening to this can take Rob's narrative and utilize it as motivation and inspiration moving forward, especially as an artist, especially as a black man. He's a powerful living example and thriving. And we're gonna have you back on, Rob, at some point. We're gonna bring you back on. We're gonna run it back. We're just kind of getting into the surface of things, but we're definitely gonna have you back on, and we're gonna link all your stuff in terms of you got a new album coming out in November.
Talk to Me is available now. Make sure
Mm.
you guys stream that on every platform.
Everywhere. Everywhere. You're gonna send me all that stuff. We'll link it all in the description below. Just want to say much love to you, Rob, and we'll catch up with you soon, sir. Okay?
Yes, sir.